Ever looked at a really complex web app and just thought, how in the world did they build that? Well, chances are the magic behind it involves React. And today, we're going to demystify it. We're going to treat it less like scary code and more like a set of digital Legos. You'll see how these simple blocks can snap together to create almost anything you can imagine. And hey, don't just take my word for it. This right here, that's a direct quote from the official React documentation. We are not trying to learn everything today. Nope. Our goal is to nail the crucial 80% that you are going to use every single day. By the end of this, you won't just have a foundation. You'll have the blueprint to actually start building stuff. So every great structure starts with a single piece, right? A single brick. In React, that fundamental piece, that first brick, is called a component. It is the atom that every user interface is built from. So what exactly is a component? The easiest way to think about it is as a self-contained chunk of your app. It can be something tiny, like a button, or it can be huge, like an entire page. The key thing here is that each component bundles up its own logic and its own appearance, which makes them perfectly reusable. And here is the first big aha moment. Under the hood, a React component is ridiculously simple. It's just a JavaScript function. That's it. This function, myButton, has exactly one job: to return a piece of visual markup. In this case, a plain old HTML button. Okay, so you've defined your block. How do you actually use it? Well, you just nest it inside another component, just like this. See that myButton tag? It looks exactly like an HTML tag, but that is our very own custom, reusable building block being put to work. Now, there are a couple rules of the road. The most important one? Your component names must start with a capital letter. That is the non-negotiable signal to React that you're using one of your custom components and not just a plain HTML tag like a div. Also, keep in mind a component can only return a single element, so if you've got a bunch of them, just wrap them in these empty angle brackets. Simple as that. So we've built our basic block, but a plain block isn't very exciting, is it? It's time to bring our components to life by adding some style and displaying some real, dynamic data. Now you might be thinking, hold on. How can we write HTML inside a JavaScript function? The magic behind this is a special syntax called JSX. It's what lets us blend the full power of JavaScript with the simple, familiar structure of HTML. It's really the best of both worlds. And this is where the real power kicks in. These little curly braces, think of them as a magic portal. They let you escape from the world of HTML and jump right into JavaScript, right there in the middle of your markup. This is how you can display a variable, like a username, or even dynamically set an image's source. It's fantastic.
To add CSS styles, there's just one tiny catch you got to remember. You use class name instead of the usual class. Why? Well, it's simply because class is a protected word in JavaScript. But don't worry, beyond that one little name change, it works exactly like the CSS you already know and love.
Okay, our components are looking good, but now it's time to make them smart. Let's give them the ability to make decisions and to handle entire lists of data. So what if you want to show or hide something based on a condition? You don't need any special React syntax. You just use plain old JavaScript. You can write a full if-else statement. You can use the more compact ternary operator for quick decisions right inside your JSX. Or, my personal favorite, you can use the logical and operator as a really clean shortcut when you don't even need an else case. And what about rendering lists of items? Well, the pattern is exactly the same. Use the JavaScript you already know. We can just take an array of data, use the standard .map function, and transform each piece of data into a brand new component. The result is a whole array of components totally ready to be rendered on the screen. Now, when you render a list, there is one absolutely crucial rule. Every single item needs a unique key. Think of it like a permanent name tag for each item. You won't actually see it on the screen, but React uses it behind the scenes to efficiently track which items have been added, removed, or just moved around. It's a huge deal for performance. A static UI is one thing, but real apps are interactive, right? They need to respond when the user clicks a button or types something in a box. And to do that, our components need a way to remember things.
This brings us to a really fundamental question. We know a component is just a function that runs and returns some UI. But once it's done running, how does it remember anything? If a user clicks a button, how can that component possibly keep track of the count between renders?
The answer is a special function from React called a hook, specifically the useState hook. By importing this one function, you give your component a superpower, the power of memory. And we call this memory state. State is just a component's private information that can change over time, like a click counter or the text in an input field. And the key word there is private. This memory is completely private to its own component. Here's how you use it. Calling useState gives you back two things in an array. First is the current value of your state, we'll call it count. And second, a special function that lets you update that value. By convention, we call that setCount. And that 0 we're passing in, that's just the initial value we want our count to start at. Okay, so we have individual blocks, and they've got their own private memory. But what happens when they need to work together? How can two separate buttons control the same exact counter? Let's solve this final piece of the puzzle. This slide illustrates the core problem perfectly. If each button has its own private count state, they are completely isolated. They're living in their own little worlds. Clicking one has absolutely no effect on the other. They just can't share data.
The solution is a concept called props. Props, it's short for properties, are how a parent component passes information down to its children. It's the official communication channel, like handing down a blueprint or a set of instructions to one of your building blocks.
And this powerful pattern is called lifting state up. It's fundamental to React. First, you move the shared state from the children up to their closest common parent. Then, that parent passes the state value and the update function back down to the children as props. And now, the children are perfectly in sync because they both read from the same single source of truth.
And there you have it, components, JSX, state, and props. We started with a single, simple block, and now we have a complete system for building dynamic, interactive applications. These are the core concepts you'll use every single day. You have the blueprint. So the only question left is, what will you build first?